let me just introduce you to Lucy. She's started off as being one of my clients. That's fair enough to say, isn't it? And I've got very fond of Lucy and her horses, because whenever we get involved in healing, her horses have got involved as well. But Lucy herself is an animal healer. She's also a solicitor. She's a very clever lady, and she works in a practice in Monmouthshire, where she lives, in Wales, and she lives on a farm and have 3 horses, do you, or more?
Yes,
3
yeah,
horses.
3.
And you do, is it true you're doing eventing and you win prizes with the horses? And so, Lucy, I'm going to mute everybody, by the way. If you can you all mute yourselves? That make life a bit easier. Just because we start to pick up on background noise otherwise. And then, Lucy, you're going to have to unmute yourself, because I've just done a group mute. Okay, that's great. Lovely. Lucy's going to talk to us tonight about healing. And I don't know whether do you want to do any meditation at all, Lucy, as part of your session? You don't have to.
I wasn't planning on doing. I assumed you would do a bit of a meditation.
Yeah, I just want to do. Good. I'll start us off. I didn't want to step onto your toes on that one. Lucy's going to talk to us about her experiences with animal healing, which I think I'm really interested in, because I've got 2 rescue dogs, and one of them is particularly a bit tricky, and I'm hoping to pick up some tips tonight, because I know it's a matter of healing for her. And sometimes we find it really hard to heal those that are closest to us. I'm sure you've all found that. I find that as a healer myself. I find it really hard. I do healing for Tony and my family, but I find it hard because the emotions get in the way. You want it too much. That's the problem. So I really look forward to you giving us some ideas, Lucy, on what we can do for our animals. And then we're going to have a talk afterwards. So I think everybody that's coming at the moment are people who've already been on one of our sessions before. So I don't really need to talk about what Conscious Cafe is. So let's just start with having a little meditation to just cool our energies in. So just drop your shoulders and relax. And breathe in deeply, and just hold in your mind and your intention that you're going to just shut yourself off from your daily life and all the problems and the challenges we've all got at the moment, and cut ourselves off from the challenges that the whole world is going through, and just zone back in on yourself. We spend a lot of our time and our energies elsewhere, and it'd be really good just to focus on yourself for a moment. And this is for you. So I surround you with the blue flame of Archangel Michael to hold your energy strong and clear and protected, and seal your energy. And we do that right now, right now, right now. I place you in a golden star tetrahedron that I spin and spin to create a golden light body around you. And all energies that come through that light body are transmuted into light. And just focusing on your heart center for a moment. Just allow your heart center to open to receive. Now bring in some energies of light for you right now. Bringing in the energies of light, of love, of compassion. Just take those energies and absorb them and put them where they're needed. Filling you with love, filling you with light, right now, right now, right now. Now just calling in your energy from wherever it's been focused, on your past, worrying about your future, on your work, your family, your health. Wherever your focus has been, we bring your energy right back now in through your heart. Right now, reclaiming your energy, your vitality, bringing it back to you right now, right now. And going into your heart center, see your heart center, a spinning circle of green light, vital and strong and open to receive, filling your heart with love, healing the hurts, filling to overflowing your heart with love right now, right now. And moving down to your solar plexus, spinning your solar plexus into a beautiful yellow orb of light, shining bright, your sun shining out into the world, to everyone you meet, full of light. And you claiming your personal power, for that's the solar plexus is where you keep your power, your strength. Seeing your solar plexus in strength right now, and as it becomes stronger and stronger, so you absorb all the fears and anxieties and transform them right now with your own power of light, strength, will and determination. And down to your sacral chakra, unblocking all creative blocks, letting them go, feeling free and knowing as you look at this beautiful spinning orange light that you are in touch with your creativity, that you're aware that you create everything in your life at some level or another. Everything is created by you. Feel the positive vibrations and know that you're creating a positive future, a positive present, a positive you. Down to your base chakra and feel as the red orb spins full of light of the root chakra. You're now rooted and strong and stable. We go on down now into the center of the planet and connect to Gaia, this beautiful energy of the Mother Earth, connecting to nature now. Feel her gift of nurture and love, and she gets you grounded and strong, secure, feet firmly on the ground with your heart and spirit high. And the energies of Mother Earth move up through into you now and go to wherever you need for healing. Mind, body and spirit. And we show our gratitude for Mother Earth and nature and visualize a future of harmony between humanity and nature. All animals, and this is going to bring us in touch with that connection to animals tonight. Just feel that energy connection now. unconditional love, total acceptance of who they are. They show us the way. And moving back to your heart, we move on to your throat chakra, seeing that spinning into a beautiful circle of blue light as you connect to your ability and power to express yourself, your feelings, who you are, without fear. And then moving on to your third eye, connecting to those senses that show you, allow you to see, sense, and know all that's hidden in our world. Allow your senses to grow strong, and this indigo light spins into perfect balance. And moving on to the great chakra that connects you, this beautiful white spinning chakra on the crown of your head that takes you with white spinning light with violet colours of flashing through it. This beautiful, beautiful circle of light that takes you and draws you up, up, up to your higher self, your soul purpose, your life purpose, your divine self, and your wisdom. Connecting you to that right now, right now, right now. Your higher self and your soul and heart, body and mind at one, together working to keep you in a state of peace and calm and love. Bless you. And we call the animal spirits to be with us now in their great coning circles of light. Beautiful, beautiful spirits that are around us all the time and are around our pets and our animals. And just allow those beautiful beings of spirit from the animal kingdom to come in and join us now. Good. Great. Well, just gently come back into the room. Good. Okay. Before we start, Lucy, I'm just going to mention that on Wednesday we have a talk on feng shui for Conscious Cafe. It's just the main thing I wanted to mention, that Gina, who gave a talk for us in our group, is now doing one, a global one, and I'm hosting her. So if you're interested in feng shui, how to create a happy home going forward, then you'll find that the connection, it's on your letters that I've sent you. If not, if you haven't got any connections for that, just email me. That's a chargeable one, but I think they're only charging about £5. So just let me know if you want to join us on Wednesday for the feng shui. And I'm doing a retreat. I'm boldly going forward and saying that I'm doing my retreat next year, next March. So if you're interested in that, interested in a retreat in the New Forest, again, just get in touch with me and I'll give you the full details. Right, okay, Lucy, you're centre stage, darling.
Oh, thank you, Anne, and thank you for having me here. I feel really privileged to be asked to talk to you all, especially as I'm a massive fan of Anne. You've helped me enormously, Anne, so I feel very honoured that you asked me to talk. So I thought I would just tell you about me and how I became a healer, because I'm always fascinated on how people get onto a spiritual path, and then I'll talk a bit about my work doing animal healing after that. And Anne's already told you a bit about me anyway. I was very lucky that I grew up on a farm. My dad was a had a small dairy herd and sheep, and all through my childhood I probably spent far more time with animals than people. And I could ride before I could walk. I had a pony when I was 2. And I pet lambs that I fed. I had pet calves. My dad used to breed pedigree Friesians, and I would train the little calves to halter lead, and I would show them at shows and things. And so I had a lovely childhood. Also, my cats, sheepdogs, chickens, and so I've sort of grown up with animals really, and so it's natural for me to want to help them. So when I was in my mid-20s, I just qualified as a solicitor, and I'd got a new job, and I was driving home from work one day, and it was a winter's night, and a lady driving in the opposite direction just span on some ice and span out of control, and I tried to brake and stop. I couldn't stop in time. We had a head-on collision. And at the time, we both walked away from the accident. My car was even repairable, so I thought I was very lucky. But a few days later, I bent down to feed the cats, and my back went into total spasm. It was absolutely excruciatingly painful. I couldn't move. I could barely drive. I couldn't ride my horse, much to my annoyance. So I had my first ever appointment with a chiropractor. And she basically realigned my pelvis, and she explained to me that as I was braking with my right foot, the impact hit and it went up my right leg and sort of shunted my pelvis out of alignment, and then that had a knock-on effect on my spine right up into my neck. So she realigned me, and I thought this was absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, the muscles around my pelvis were so damaged and weak, the alignment wouldn't seem to hold in place. So I was constantly going to the chiropractor. I had lots of pain, and I didn't seem to be really getting anywhere. I tried physio, osteopaths, so all the mainstream therapies, which all help, but nothing really ever got rid of it completely. And then I went to a local healer. I'd already started learning like Reiki and sort of basic healing, so it was really interesting. So I went to a local healer, and she sort of ran energy into my back, and it sort of seemed to release all the soft tissue, and the bones, I could feel the bones just going back to where they should do without being, you know, forced into place. They just went back naturally. And I went on to have quite a few sessions with her, and I noticed a huge difference. So I asked her what she was doing, and she was very honest. She just said she was a natural healer anyway, but she'd read a book called Quantum Touch by Richard Gordon, and she was using those techniques. She hadn't done any proper training in quantum touch. She was just using what she'd read in this book. So I bought the book, read it, and it was a very simple technique of really just channeling earth energy. So I started experimenting on my horses, and horses have absolutely enormous pelvises, and they're often out of alignment. It's the way we jumping, galloping, they're often slightly out of alignment. So, and you can really easily see when they're out of alignment and when they're straight again. So I was able to trial this technique, and I could see that it worked. So I was absolutely thrilled with this. So I went on to do the quantum touch training. And then I also did, one of the very first courses I did was a kinesiology course, where you learn to muscle test, which is like a form of dowsing. And this was a course for people and animals. So the very first thing I learned was how to get a yes/no answer from animals, just using muscle testers. So you can go yes, no, or you can use a pendulum to dowse. And probably every day since I learned that, I've used dowsing or muscle testing to see what my animals want. And it totally transformed how I look after, particularly my horses. I used to rug them up. I mean, as a nation, we do over rug our horses, but they don't feel the cold like we do. So like tonight it's a bit chilly out, you think, oh, I need a coat on, so you naturally go to put a rug on your horse. But when I was starting muscle testing, I realised they didn't want a rug on, they were warm enough. So little things like that, I gave my animals sort of control of their lifestyle rather than me dictating what happened to them. And also on this kinesiology course, I learnt to connect with animals, and I was able to connect with my horse Purdy, and Purdy is the beautiful horse that is on the photograph for the flyer for this session, and I hadn't had her long at that point, and she was sort of showing a few behavioural issues, and I connected with her. And I could just feel really anxious. I had butterflies in my stomach. I just felt really, anxious. So the tutor said, what are you feeling? I said, I feel really anxious. And he said, well, that's how your horse feels. And I was absolutely horrified. And I booked him to do a healing session on her. And I had no idea what he was doing. I think looking back, he was clearing a lot of negative energies from her. She'd come from her previous owner had gone through a difficult divorce, so where that had an impact on her, she's very sensitive to energy. But he sort of cleared her, and she transformed afterwards. She was so much happier, much more trainable, sort of more, really enjoyed her life. So that really made a big difference for me, seeing it hands-on work on my own horse. It really got me interested in energy, and obviously I then went on to learn as much as I possibly could. I did animal acupressure courses, a lot of energy training, and eventually I was able to realign the skeletal structure just using energy, which was my dream. Having had so many back problems myself, I realised that so many people need it's like an alternative chiropractor, someone that can realign a skeletal structure without causing further damage to the soft tissue. So I sort of spent about 3 years practicing on family, friends and their animals, and then the universe gave me a bit of a shove that I ought to start doing this professionally, and my neighbour asked me to treat him and offered to pay me. So that made me, set up properly, get insurance and what have you, and he had back trouble. And he was so pleased with the results, he recommended me to his friends. I did his horses, and it sort of took off from there, really. And he's still a client today, so I feel very grateful to him for giving me that push. And around that time, I had a very stressful job. I was doing conveyancing, which is buying and selling houses. I did commercial property, and I'd have some really big transactions as well as your average conveyancing transaction. I had a really heavy workload, and I don't know if any of you have ever moved house of how stressful it is. But having like 150 transactions on at any one time, it was just horrendously busy, and I realised that I didn't want to be doing that for the rest of my working career. So having the opportunity to change and do something completely different was perfect for me. And around about, I think it was back in 2014, once I was all up and running with my healing, I was finding it hard doing it all at weekends and evenings. I went to my boss and asked if I could work part-time, and I was very lucky. He agreed and said that I could do the wills and powers of attorney, which is something I really enjoy doing. So I was able to combine my career with healing much more successfully without getting exhausted. So really, since 2014, I've been doing it properly, professionally. So I just want to talk now a little bit about my work itself. So it's my belief, and you're free to disagree with me, that the skeletal structure must be in alignment before we can fully heal, because when the skeletal structure is straight, then our chakras can be in balance, our meridians the energy in our meridians can flow smoothly, our energy systems can be harmonious and balanced. Where if we have any misalignment, then that creates a blockage in our system, whether it's an energetic blockage, it can affect nerves, it can affect the blood flow around our body, it can affect our circulation. So it's my belief that the key to any healing is the physical healing of having your skeletal structure in alignment, and that's really where I started all my healing from. And I use universal energy, the highest vibration areas, to release fascia and soft tissue. So fascia is like it's like the white film on meat. But some of you probably don't eat meat, but there's like a white film that connects all our muscles together, the tendons, ligaments, the bones. And when we have an injury, like when my pelvis was out of alignment, my fascia around there got really stuck. And it's not that my pelvis wasn't going to go back into alignment and stay there unless we release the fascia. So when I do energy work, I can feel the fascia going from really stuck and rigid. It starts to turn more buttery and smooth, and that's when the bones go back where they should do. And it's sort of like a natural process. So rather than forcing them back in, it's a sort of opposite way of doing it, releasing the fascia and soft tissue so they sort of glide back in naturally. And what I've also found is that what often gets overlooked are the alignment of the cranial bones in the head, and the occipital bone at the back of your skull tends to mirror the pelvis. So if your pelvis is out, your occipital bone is nearly always out of alignment. And this is particularly important for dogs, because when dogs are on the lead and they're pulling, excited, they're pulling on their collar, they're really pulling their necks, and their necks will tend to go out of alignment, and then that has a knock-on effect. Their cranial bones will go out of alignment, and that can often create headaches. I have worked with people with migraines and just realign their cranial bones, and that can help relieve migraines. And it's the same with animals. And a lot of animals, horses have headaches. And often with horses, they can have one side of their face totally dropped, and the owner doesn't really even notice. And I can use energy to realign all those facial and cranial bones, and it can have a huge effect on them, a huge improvement. So going back to the dogs on pulling on their leads, what happens? The neck goes out, cranial bones go out of alignment. If that's left unaddressed, then the spine will go out of alignment, and then the hips, and then it goes to the hips. And it's really only when the hips go that owners sort of notice, and they'll often go to the vets, and they'll be diagnosed with a hip issue, which they do have a hip issue, but it all stemmed from the neck. So when I think probably every single dog that I work with, I spend a lot of time realigning their neck, head, and if it's progressed, the spine and the hips, it is that's really important. And probably at least 95% of horses that I work on have a misaligned skeletal structure. When they're carrying weight, often having ill-fitting saddles, doing a lot of jumping, they're or galloping, or even dressage, they are using a lot of muscles through their back, and it can only take a little strain, and the vertebra can go out of alignment, the pelvis can go out of alignment, and that does have an effect on performance. When I was competing Purdy, I was competing at a level where she was at the top of her ability. I was doing an international, and the jumps was almost too big for her. She was right at the top of her ability, and she had to have her skeletal structure perfect to be able to jump that track. One little vertebra out, and I'd have a pole down, or it would be a struggle for her. So I used to be there in the collecting ring, checking her, but I'd be sat in the saddle, just feeling her back, trying to do a bit of energy work just before I went in. So it was a really useful skill to have. So that's the thing I'm most passionate about, is having the skeletal structure in alignment. And I can do that from a distance. So during lockdown, I've started doing a lot more work from a photograph rather than in person. And I found that I actually prefer working that way. And I can really concentrate on the animal and not get distracted by the owner. Dogs are really difficult to work on in person because they get really easily distracted and they take ages to calm down, and they often have a little bit of healing, then they run around, wag their tail, have a bit of a drink, come back, have a bit more healing, and run around again. And it can be quite hard going working on them. So I've started doing a lot more distance sessions from a photo. So I've just sort of talked through how I sort of go through a session with animals. So I'll have their name, I'll normally have some information about what the problem is, I'll have their photo, and then I tune into them, and the very first thing I do is to ask their permission to work on them. And it is very rare that they say no, but it has actually happened, and there's normally a really good reason. So I was once asked to work on a horse distantly that was show jumping in Spain, and I tuned in and I got a no. You can't, I don't have permission to work on this horse. And I asked the universe, as I was like, oh no, what do I do? And the universe said it's not appropriate for you to do work on this horse. So I sort of had to go, I was really embarrassed. I had to go back to the owner, who I thought was the owner, and say, look, I'm really sorry, it's not appropriate for me to work on this horse. I don't know why, but I can't do it. You can have a refund. And it transpired that the person asking me to do the healing wasn't actually the owner. She was, she had good intentions, but she was trying to integrate herself with the owner and the professional rider, and she was trying to be helpful, but it was in a bit of an underhand way. She was trying to be controlling. She was trying to improve this horse's performance and take sort of the credit for having organised it all, and obviously the universe didn't allow that to happen, so she got caught out. So that is a really unusual scenario. If I'm doing healing on friends' animals for free, I'll often get a no, you can't do that. And at the moment I've got a friend who's got a very poorly horse, and I desperately want to do some healing and help him and help her, and I get a no, you can't do this, Lucy, no, no, no. And I've asked the universe why, because I find it very frustrating, and it's my friend has got to learn some life lessons from her horse being ill, and if I just go in and do the healing, which she hasn't even asked me to do, I'm doing it because I want to, then she's not learning what she's supposed to from that situation. So yeah, I always have to ask the animal for permission before I start working, and 99.9% of the time I get a yes, but just occasionally I do get a no. So then I tune into the animal, and then I can immediately feel in my own body where they've got issues. So they've got a headache, I can feel a headache. If they've got stomach pain, I can feel stomach pain. I can kind of feel if their skeletal structure's wonky. I can feel if their shoulders are tight. So I've got a general idea of what's going on straight away because I can feel it in my own body. But just to double check, I use my dowsing or muscle testing, and I try and find out where they're in pain, where they're in discomfort, what I need to work on. And obviously my first thing I do is do the realignment work, because that to me is the key for improving mobility, reducing pain, improving flexibility. So that is the key for me. If I'm having trouble, occasionally I have trouble realigning the spine, and the fascia is so stuck I can't release it, and that's normally a sign that there's some trauma trapped there, some emotional stuff trapped in the fascia, and I have to release that before it will go into that lovely buttery state and for the bones to realign. And trauma release is quite common in animals. It can only take like a trip to the vet and they can get traumatized. If a dog's attacked by another dog, that can cause a lot of trauma. abuse from previous owners. And as I see it, trauma and emotion is really just an energy, and if we just release that, then they can heal. So I'm often not really interested what the emotion is. I'm just so keen to get rid of that energy. That's all I'm really interested in. And that brings me on to sort of talking about emotional issues for animals. And I believe that animals have the same range of emotions that we do. They can grieve, they get jealous, they can get angry, they can feel resentful, they can have joyful periods, and they can be sad as well. I believe they have the full range of emotions that we do. But what sets them apart from us, and this is probably the most important thing that I have learned from animals, is that they just live in the moment. We, as humans, we often are either stuck in the past, going over and over the same old things, or wallowing in things that have gone wrong, or we're living in the future where we're worrying about the future, especially at the moment in the current situation, worrying about things that may never happen. And I know I've been guilty of both of those. I used to probably go from the past to the future, back and forth. But observing animals just live in the moment day by day, and it's something I strive to do. I don't always manage it, but this is something I'm striving to do, because if you can do that, it's so much easier to let go of emotions. So if an animal loses a companion and they have that grief, it doesn't stay with them. They're not wallowing in it all the time. When they're living in the moment, they obviously feel that emotion, but they do let it go much more easily than we do, and it makes them, from my point of view, a lot easier to work with. They normally don't have the emotional baggage that we do. They can move on a lot better than we can. So I'm often asked to work with animals with behavioural issues, and I firstly rule out whether it's pain related, which often is. Most horses who have behavioural issues, it's nearly always pain related, because they're having to carry a big lump of weight, often very poorly balanced, on an ill-fitting saddle, and asked to do a lot of hard work. They often, when they can't do it and they're in pain, they often down tools, quite rightly so. And it's only when they start doing that the owner often notices that there's something wrong. So those behavioural issues are more easily remedied, because it's pain related and we can identify what it is and hopefully help the issue. They can have behavioural issues from emotional reasons, which I've obviously just talked about. And they can also have behavioural issues due to negative energies. And I know you had a talk a few months ago by Emma Lovehart, and I listened to the recording and I thought it was a brilliant talk. I really loved it. And she talked about clearing homes and clearing negative energies. And animals that are living in an environment or affected by negative energies can often play up. Horses tend to exhibit anxiety, well, dogs too, and so that might be something that needs clearing, and often that can totally wipe out behavioural issues. I know Anna's done that for my horses, cleared away other third-party energies, and it's totally transformed them. So that's another thing that I look into, and whether any work is needed in that area. And if I've exhausted all of those things, the major problem left is animals mirroring their owners, and this is more common in dogs than any other animal. Because cats, I love cats, they just seem to transmute negative energies. They can come in, give us a cuddle, sort of almost do healing on us, and then go out, do their own thing and transmute all that energy. So I don't often get a cat to work on, because they just seem so self-sufficient. And horses and farm animals are in the field. They're not with us all the time. They can have downtime. They're only with us a few hours a day, so they're out with their mates in the field and can relax and get away from us. But dogs, they can be with us 24/7. They can live in the environment 24/7. So if they're in a stressful environment, they do mirror their owners. And it's actually been scientifically proven. So a university in Sweden last year did a study, and they measured the hormone cortisol in dogs and their owners. And obviously that hormone is produced when people are more stressed. And what they found was the owners that were more stressed had dogs with a higher level of cortisol in their system as well. So the dogs mirrored the owners, and it can be a problem, especially if dogs are living in a household where a couple are permanently arguing, on the verge of divorce, or teenage children are fighting and arguing and they can't really get any peace and quiet. That can manifest itself in some sort of behavioural issue. And that's the hardest thing for me as a healer to address, because the owner's got to take steps to change the environment or change what they're doing. So that's a more tricky scenario for me to deal with. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So that's kind of my systematic way of working with animals. I start off with the physical work, emotional work, trauma release, check if there's any negative energies affecting them. And I also use animal communication to assist with all of that. And for every animal communicator is different. For me, I tend to hear words, but occasionally I will see a picture or a little video clip. But I think we perhaps all work in different ways. I'm not a particularly chatty person. I tend to just use communication to find out what I need to do for the healing. I know there are animal communicators out there that get loads and loads of information about all the past history and what have you. I don't tend to pick up on that because I'm not really interested in that. I'm only interested in the past if it's relevant to the healing session. Because animals live so much in the here and now, I don't see it's necessary to find out about their past just out of nosiness, unless it's needed, unless I need to know that in order to enable them to release trauma or emotional stuff. So that's how I work, but I know other people work in a different way. I really use animal communication to sort of find out where they're feeling pain, so kind of what's going on, but I've got to be very careful in doing that, because I'm not allowed as a healer to diagnose or prescribe. So even if I get a lot of horses to work on that have ulcers in their stomach, it's quite common, and I can't say your horse has ulcers, even though I'm like 99% sure they have. All I can say is it might be worth you getting your vet to check whether your horse has ulcers or not, perhaps get it scoped or what have you. So I've got to be very careful with my wording. You're not allowed to diagnose. And a lot of people will contact me because they think I'm a cheap vet, that I can, they'll go, oh, what's wrong with my horse? He's lame. Can you diagnose what's going on? I'm not allowed to do that. It is actually illegal. So I can only really give pointers of where they're feeling pain, and I can do the realignment work, but I can't diagnose or prescribe. And quite right so. I do really respect the work of vets, and I have to work with them, and they have their job, I have mine, and I like to work with them, really. And not only that, but vets have to give permission for any non-veterinary treatments. So it doesn't matter if you're a healer, if you're a physio, whatever non-veterinary treatment, the vet has to give you permission before you can work on the animal. I don't normally have any problems with this. The vets are normally quite happy for me to work on animals. The only time when they're not is if the animals perhaps just had a big operation and it's a bit too soon. They think it's a bit too soon for me to do healing, and really in that situation I would agree with them. So I'm quite lucky. I've actually got a client who's a vet, and I realign her back. I do healing on her and her horses, and she's brilliant. She says to me, "I don't know what you do, Lucy, but it works." So I feel quite honoured to have a vet as a client. So that's really useful. So with the animal communication, I've kind of learnt the hard way to leave the communication work till the end of the session. So what I tend to do, I do all the healing. When that's all complete, I'll sort of ask the animal, are all their needs being met? Is there anything that can be improved on? That's what I'm interested in, is how their life can be improved. What little things can we do to help them? And I've learned to do it at the end of the session, because the answers can change after having healing. And I have made the mistake of doing communication at the beginning of a session. I once worked on a horse that said he wanted to retire from jumping. Now I did all this body work on him. He obviously felt a lot better, and the owner took him for a ride, a week or so later, and she had some little jumps up in the field, and he locked onto the jumps. He obviously really wanted to jump, so she contacted me and said, "Oh no, you said he didn't want to jump anymore. I could just really feel he wanted to jump, and he really enjoyed it." And I said, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. I should have asked him that question at the end of the session and not at the beginning, because his answer had obviously changed as a result of the healing." So I've learned the hard way to leave all my communication to the end after they've had the healing. So I normally ask them, are all their needs being met? And I do get some hilarious answers. So I worked on this little Jack Russell who's terribly spoilt, and I said to her, all your needs being met? And she's, "No, I want the stairs carpeted." And she showed me. She was scrabbling up this beautiful wooden staircase, but she's struggling to get up it with her little claws, and she's slipping all over the place. So she wanted the stairs carpeted so she could go up there easily. And then to add to that, she liked to jump into bed, but the bed that she wanted to jump into was really high, and she wanted a little step so that she could jump on the step and then jump into bed. So you can imagine, I relayed this to the owner, and we just it was so funny. And every time I see the owner, I say, "Have you carpeted your stairs yet?" And so we have. Sometimes it's really funny, but she hasn't carpeted the stairs. She said the dog is very spoilt, but that is going a bit overboard. So and another example of communication, because I often just get a photograph or a video clip of a scenario, like with the Jack Russell, I just saw a little video clip of us trying to scrabble up the stairs. I've got to be really careful in how I interpret that information. I was once working on a horse, and what comes up for a lot of horses is that they need more salt in their diet. We're supposed to feed horses 25 grams of table salt in their feed every day, because they sweat so much, they need it. But because we, us humans, think having salt is really bad, putting 25 grams in a feed seems a lot, and a lot of people don't do it because it seems too much and they think it would be bad for the horse, but they do actually need salt. And a lot of horses have salt licks that they can lick, and they can have as much or as little as they like. So I was doing a communication on this horse, a racehorse actually, who asked for salt in his diet. And he was already being fed salt, but because he was racing and really sweating, he needed even more. And he just showed me a bucket, and I just assumed it was a feed bucket. So I went back to the owner and said, "He's asked for more salt. and he's asked for it in his feed rather than a lick. So she came back to me and said, are you sure he wanted it in his feed? Because I normally give him electrolytes in his water bucket. And I double checked and I realised I'd made a mistake. And the bucket he was showing me was a water bucket, not his feed bucket. And that was my interpretation of what he was showing me. So it is really difficult as an animal communicator. You've got to be very careful of interpreting the information that you're given, and that's why it's good to have a discussion with the owner, and then you can sort of get the right answer. And then animal communication can be misconstrued, and I do have a couple of negative stories, because I think it's important to talk about the negative situations as well. So recently I was asked to work with a horse. I've worked with this horse over the years, but he's a show jumper and he hadn't been jumping particularly well recently, and they decided to retire him from jumping. And the owner emailed me and said, we've decided to retire him from jumping. I want to send him to a lone home. Can you tune into him and check that will be okay? And I obviously was not at all comfortable in doing that. She was just wanting, she obviously felt guilty about him putting him out on a lone home, and just really wanted verification that he was happy with that. And B, how am I supposed to ask him if he's going to be happy in a lone home when he's not in that home yet and he hasn't experienced it? It's impossible to get any information on that. So that was really going to be a recipe for disaster. So I went back to her and said, look, you've presented this to me as a fait accompli. I'm sure whatever you decide will be in his best interests. That was it. Anyway, she came back to me and said, oh, no, I'm sorry about my email. I didn't mean it like that. I do want you to do a session. I said, okay, but I'll do a healing session and I'll just see what comes up. So my priority was doing healing for him, and he was really stiff and sore. His pelvis was out, his back was out. There's no wonder he wasn't jumping very well. So I spent most of the session realigning his spine, sorting him out really. And then at the end, I asked him about his future and what he wanted, and he was very clear. He said he wanted to retire from jumping and he wanted to retire completely from ridden work, and as long as he had a companion to live with, he was going to be pretty happy. So I relayed all of that back to the owner, and she said thank you, that's fine. But she went ahead and sent him to the lone home, and they are still riding him. He has retired from jumping, which is good, but they are still riding him and he's doing hacking. And for her, she was not remotely interested in the healing for him. All she wanted was verification of her. She wanted her guilt eased about her plans for him. And since then, she's messaged me several times with photos of him riding, and she's sent me 3 messages this week alone telling me how happy he has been ridden. So I've started ignoring it now. But from my point of view, that is really disheartening, because she's not listening to me. More importantly, she's not listening to the horse. So there is a downside to animal communication. You have to be prepared not to be listened to. It's very rare this happens, but at the end of the day, us people we've got our own sort of needs and wants, and we often impose that on the animal without listening to them. And it made me realise that animal communication can be misunderstood, and really the healing is my priority, and going forward that's what I sort of need to be focusing on rather than the animal communication side. So I find that quite an interesting scenario from my point of view, and how I explain what I do to other people as well. And probably I've just got one more story about a negative story about animal communication, which again I learned a lot from. So I got asked to go and see an elderly horse. He was an ex-polo pony and he hadn't been ridden for about 5 years. And when I got there, I mean, you didn't need to be an animal communicator to tell he was in a lot of pain. The way he was standing, his legs were spread. He was trying to put his weight sort of out. His front feet were splayed like that. His back feet were sort of out far from his body as well. He looked really uncomfortable. And my gut instinct was not to do, he was too bad for me to intervene. So I didn't work on him. I just said, look, you need to get the vet. I can't deal with this, which I thought was the right thing to do. But he just looked at me and I could feel him say, I just want this to end, meaning his life. So I just said to the owner, I said, you might want to think about having him put down before the winter. And I had tears. She just went berserk, really. She was really, really upset. I obviously really triggered her by suggesting this, but I sort of backed off and said, look, get the vet, let's see what the vet says. So and I left there as quickly as I could, really. The vet, she got the vet out and the vet said exactly the same as me. And the vet did give him some painkillers in the interim. And then a couple of months later, I saw her. So I asked what happened, and she said she had the vet out, and he said the same as me. And she said she was back riding him again, and I was just like absolutely horrified. And I was so upset by it that I sort of asked the universe what was really going on in this situation. And what I found was that she didn't have the highest truth and understanding of death and what death means. And I think animals have that understanding, whereas we don't. And I think this might be a good talking point for later. I think animals are very lucky because we can make the decision to end things for them without them having to suffer, where we don't have that prerogative. I know when my dad was dying, I remember saying to my mum, you wouldn't keep a dog in this condition. So I think we're lucky to have that responsibility, but it is a responsibility. And I learned a lot from that difficult situation, and it made me realise that my view of death might be different from clients. And I've had another situation where I was working on a dog for another healer, actually, and she worshipped this dog like we all do. We love our animals, and he was 15. He was starting to deteriorate, and she knew this. And she was taking him to the vet, the osteopath, me, here, there, and everywhere. She was throwing everything at him to try and help him. But he just said to me, I have a lot of appointments. It's hilarious. The way they say it is hilarious. He goes, I have a lot of appointments and I just want a little bit of peace and quiet. So I relayed that message to her, and she totally got it. And he just wanted to spend his last months or however long he had with her and not being rushed from appointment to appointment, where she thought she was doing the right thing for him and trying her utmost to help him, but he was just more accepting of the end and just wanted quality time with her. So that was another really interesting situation. So I've kind of learnt a lot from my communication with animals, to live in the moment, that their view of death can be different to ours. Their needs are often different to what we might expect. My horses have caught me out on this one. I've got a horse, Florrie, who is enormous. She's 17 she's a very big girl. So she lives she's too big for a normal stable, so she lives in a shed, and so she has a really big deep bed. And what we tend to do, I just clean out the plops every day, and then it's cleaned out properly with a tractor every few months. And the bed was getting really, to my mind, it was getting really stinky and smelly. I thought it was disgusting, and I was a bit ashamed of it. So I got the chap who helps us on the farm to clean it out with a tractor. So he'd done a brilliant job, and she had this lovely, fluffy, clean bed of straw. And I got her in, and she was absolutely disgusted. She was like, "Where's my stinky bed? I like the stinky bed." So what we want and what they want can be quite different. So I was going to go on now and talk a little bit about chakra systems of animals, and we've got some PowerPoints on, haven't we?
Hopefully, yes. Hold on.
Yeah.
What I can hear.
I'll carry on talking while you're doing that, Anne.
All right.
So animals have a slightly different chakra system to us, and in a minute you will see why that's different. There we go. So that's the chakra system of a cat, and animals have an extra chakra to us. They have a brachial chakra, which you can see is the grey chakra on the shoulder, and there's one each side of the shoulder. And that chakra links all the other chakras together. And it's also the key chakra for animal-human bonding. So that chakra is often unbalanced with rescue animals. And with your rescue dogs, this might be something to work on. And if I'm doing a session in person on an animal, I'll always start with the brachial chakra. So I'll put my hands either side of the shoulders. Obviously, if I'm on a horse, I can only do it one side at a time. But a dog or cat, you can do both sides at the same time. And I try and connect with them through the chakra and balance that. And by balancing that chakra, it helps to balance all the other chakras. Then the other difference that they've got two heart chakras. So you can see the main heart chakra is on that's really on the front of the chest, and it's each side, so it goes up to the withers as well. But there's a second heart chakra sort of just behind the elbow, directly below the brachial chakra, if you could see that dotted line in a circle. So yeah, they have two heart chakras, which is really interesting. And then they also have a lot more chakras than us, actually. They have 21 minor sensory chakras, the main one of which is on the bridge of the nose. It doesn't come out very well on here, but if you look below the brow chakra, there is a tiny little circle there, and that is the main sensory chakra. And that's like their computer for sensory information. So that is why animals have a sixth sense. So they compute all the sensory information that they receive through that chakra on the bridge of the nose. And that's really vital for them to assist with their survival. So it's really come from when they were living in the wild. They need that extra sensory information to be able to survive and avoid predators and what have you. And then underneath, you can't really see, but on each paw is a bud chakra. So they're found, oh, that's it, on the bottom of each paw we've got a bud chakra, and it's also by the ear. So if you could just see by the crown chakra, there we go, that's it, that's another bud chakra there. And the bud chakras are really sensitive to energy vibrations. They can sense changes in weather. They can sense impending events like earthquakes and what have you. So they get a lot more information than we do from their environment. And I had an interesting scenario. I was riding Purdy quite a few years ago up in the woods, and there was a bit of roadway in the woods that she was not at all happy about going across. And if she did go across it, she'd gallop flat out across it. It was only a short stretch. no, I couldn't understand what was going on with this. It's very peculiar behaviour by her. And sure enough, a few days later, there was a landslip and the whole road had totally wiped out. So Purdy was able to sense that the land there was unstable. I was totally ignorant to it and couldn't understand what she was making a fuss about, and obviously totally ignored her. But she was trying to tell me that that was totally unstable, and actually the road totally caved in, and you couldn't even pass it for quite a few months till they repaired it. So that was an interesting scenario of the bud chakras. I've been talking quite a long time, and I hope you found it interesting, and I'm sure I've raised quite a lot of questions. Oh yeah, we now got the chakra system for the dog, and obviously the same applies. The systems for cats and dogs are very similar, and then you can see where all the main chakras are on animals, when you know where they are on humans. It's quite interesting to see where they are on animals. And there's a little bit of information on each chakra which you can read at your leisure about information of what it means when they are when those chakras are unbalanced. So I thought you might find that interesting and useful for your own animals. Yeah, so I hope you found that interesting, and I'm sure I've raised quite a few questions, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Oh, bless you. I'm going to stop the share now and just say that, first of all, that was fantastic, Lucy. Thank you so much. Bless your heart.
Oh, thank you.
We'll have some questions, but I'm really, really interested. I'm sure everybody, I'm going to send a recording of this out to everybody, and I'll also send a copy of the chakras out to everybody. So don't worry, I'll be sending copies of that. Thank you, Lucy. Now, questions. Anybody got any questions? If you unmute yourself, you can just... Anybody got any questions? I'll unmute.
I just wanted to say how good that was, Lucy. You covered so much. It was just so easy to listen to and fluent, and it's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll put it in gallery view. Yeah, really smashing, Lucy. Can I just ask something about the muscle response, muscle testing on animals?
Yeah.
Could you just explain a little bit more how you do that?
Yeah, of course. So you visualize your animal, so you ask, so what I do, say I ask to be connected to my horse Purdy. And then I'll just check. I mean, first of all, I'll just check my yes, no answers. So to do that, I'll do, my name is Lucy, and I get a yes. So if you have your thumb and index finger in a circle and do it for each hand, and then interlink them, if you say my name is, and your name, you should get a strong response, and that's a yes. If you say my name is Bob, you get a no response, and it's the muscle is weak, and that's a no. So to use that to communicate with animals, because this will enable you to communicate with your animals from this moment onwards, and this is the most amazing thing. So you ask to connect to your animal and just visualize him or her, and just say, I'm connected to Purdy, yes. So then once you form that connection, you can ask questions. So I'll say, Purdy, have you got any nutritional deficiencies? No. Purdy, is your skeletal structure in alignment? That'll be a no. No, because I haven't worked on her recently. So you can ask things like that. You can, and particularly with dogs, what often comes up is that they're either over-exercised or under-exercised, because it all depends on their breed, their age, their personality. So you can ask them, do you want to go for a walk today? Do you want to go for a walk now? Are you ready to come home? And you know, do you want a treat? Yes.
Always.
Always. So yeah, so does that explain, Anne, how I
yes,
use
it
the
is.
muscle
Thank you,
testing?
sweetheart. Absolutely perfect. Yes, because I've just already got that a treat's always a yes.
Yeah.
It's always a yes. I've just realised one of my dogs is, Lucy, she was limping a bit. Lucy, you see, she was limping a bit, and I just thought, I wonder if she, because I think she pulled a muscle coming out of a pond the other week, and she was limping today, and it's not too bad now, but I'm just checking to see if there is a problem, and there is a problem with her skeleton. So I think I might be coming to you for some cranial, distance cranial work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
That's good.
So that was one of the first things I learned in muscle testing, and it is absolutely amazing to be able to you can all communicate with your animals if you can do that. The only thing I would say is that if you're asking something that you're really emotionally attached to, you might override the answer. So if your animal's really ill and you're really upset about it, it's best to get someone else to do the muscle testing, because it'll go haywire, because that emotion will override. You'll kind of get what you want to get, not the truth. So just be mindful of that.
Sure.
It's much easier doing other people's animals, like you quite rightly said at the beginning, Anne.
Yeah, I think so. It's like your family. It's quite, you get, once the emotions get involved, it's not so easy. Yeah. So are you doing, are you taking, if people wanted to connect with you to have a healing session for one of their pets or animals?
Yeah, that's no problem at all. I just need a photograph, and normally you can just send me an email with a photograph and a little bit of information of what you want to get out of the session, what the problems are, and then I arrange a time so that you're not walking your dog when I'm working on him, and I arrange a convenient time. I often do it in the evening when things are quiet, and then I either give you a ring or email back of what I found, and I cover all the aspects that I sort of talked about, really.
Fabulous, thank you. That's really interesting. Anybody else got any questions? That's good, brilliant. Well, I want to say a big thank you to Lucy, because I found it really fascinating tonight. I learned so much, and I'm going to drag her back to do a course and put it on my website at the same time, so that people can actually learn how to do this for themselves, because I absolutely, and she will do healing. You just need to email her with a photograph, and it's £50 for healing for horse, cat, or whatever. I expect there might be a special price for mice or whatever, but has anybody got any last questions for Lucy before we wrap up tonight?
I've got Lucy's email address, Anne.
Lucy, what's your email address, darling?
It's Lucy Yeomans, which is Lucy, and that's YEOMANS at yahoo.co.uk. But if you Google Lucy Yeomans therapy, you'll see my website anyway. So if you get,
I got the O and the E round the wrong way. I did it Y-O-E. Is it E-O?
Y-E-O, yeah, YEOMANS.
Oh, sorry about that. All right. Yeah.
So Lucy Yeoman Therapy is your website?
Yes, that's it.
I shall definitely be getting you onto Lucy, my Lucy, who with her shoulder. And if you could stop her barking at every dog she ever comes across, that would be even more amazing. My two dogs were kept in a shop for 4 years, the first 4 years of their lives. They never went for a walk or anything. They were kept in a shop as guard dogs, and they're Labradors. Can you imagine?
Oh,
I've got the only barking Labradors. Yeah, they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Lucy, thank you so much. Bless you. Big hugs.
Joanne.
To you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. It was
thank
lovely.
you, Anne.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And I'll share this and pass it on to you. So when I send you the copy, you can pass it on. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anne.
Bye-bye,
Thanks
Lucy.
very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Take care.